So them being in it is nothing to be afraid of. They can't do anything. Like that the previous games of corruptions and manipulation that they're famously known for in Wall Street, those cannot happen. Now they're selling it to their clients, via ETFs, which is smoke and mirrors when it comes to Bitcoin. That's not Bitcoin. This is like a mirage. It's like a mirage. It's like instead of going on a cruise, you're wearing virtual glasses that show you're on a cruise, but you're still living in your in your basement downstairs. It's not you lacking in effort. It's not you lacking in motivation. You are fighting against a system that is 100% rigged against you. Well, you can't swim against a strong tide. You just can't. And so you need to understand that you are in a rigged system before you can take the right measures to help yourself. Like if you're making, let's to make the numbers easy, $1,000 a month, right? It's hyperinflated 15-20%. Boom, that's gone. Then you're taxed up to, let's say 40-50%. Boom, that's gone. And then you have to argue with the bank, pay their bullshit fees for whatever thing you want to do. So what's left from that 1,000? Slavery was supposed to be abolished, right? We're supposed to be done with that. Well, guess what? This is modern slavery. Nobody's in chains, but everybody's in debt.
I've developed a new open source P2P e-cash system called Bitcoin. It's completely decentralized with no central server or trusted parties because everything is based on crypto proof instead of trust. Satoshi Nakamoto. Welcome back to another episode of What is Your Bitcoin Story podcast with your host Gigi, where we dive into the inspiring journeys and experiences of prominent figures in the Bitcoin community. Today we have a special guest joining us, none other than Tony Yazbeck, the founder of the Bitcoin Way. Tony has dedicated his life to helping individuals from all corners of the globe achieve financial freedom and sovereignty through expert guidance on proper self-custody, inheritance planning, cybersecurity, residency planning, and much more. As we dive into Tony's fascinating story and the incredible work he's doing at the Bitcoin Way, you will gain a deeper understanding of how Bitcoin is revolutionizing our world and empowering individuals to take control of their financial destinies. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an insightful conversation that will leave you thinking about the endless possibilities of the Bitcoin revolution. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, Gigi. It's good to be here, man. How are you?
Likewise, I'm doing very well. It's another beautiful day in this world, so can't complain. Making the most of it. How about yourself?
Excellent, man. Excellent. Every day working with Bitcoiners, puts a smile on my face. So can't complain on this end.
Indeed. Well, working on Bitcoin doesn't feel like work. It feels like doing the thing that we were put on this world to do, right? To make it a little bit better. So I couldn't agree more. It's a wonderful time. So I guess before I kick it off with the big question, how did your Bitcoin journey begin? I just wanted to kind of give our listeners a little bit of a pre-context that we actually had the pleasure of meeting you in person at this year's BTC Prague, where you were celebrating actually your first year anniversary since the Bitcoin Way was launched at last year's BTC Prague of 2023. So congrats on all the success so far, Tony.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a wild ride. It's been a very quick ride. We didn't expect things to develop, as swiftly as they did, but it was an incredibly rewarding journey from people's perspective. The numerous amounts of individuals that we had the pleasure of meeting and interacting with, listening to their stories, sharing our stories with them. Was absolutely mind blowing. This is why I do what I do at this point. Like the money really is secondary or even third, fourth level for me. It's not what I'm here for. The reason I came into Bitcoin was because my whole life was stolen from me, and once you go through something like this, you never come out of it the same individual again.
Of course.
So my mission now, has been completely reprogrammed, repurposed in order to ensure that I know what the cause was now. And now my mission is to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else, and that collectively we take down that evil that is, destroying the entire planet and affecting, people's lives on a daily basis.
Of course. So for some listeners that are fairly new and don't know your backstory, so if I'm not mistaken, you're natively from Lebanon, right? So kind of the
Correct.
turbulence with the financial system and essentially the fiat collapse that was happening there. Was that your entry to the Bitcoin journey, or it began before that?
No, that was the entry. I mean, I heard of it, just to be fully transparent here. I heard about it in 2012 from a friend of mine who asked me to spend $100 buying it. And like every other dummy back then, you ignore it because you're too busy doing
Yeah.
something else. And that's it. It left my mind, and I never looked back up until in 2019, when everything blew up in Lebanon and everybody's life savings were completely destroyed. That's what brought me to Bitcoin. Not immediately, but the path to recovery eventually led me to find it, thankfully. And once I did, everything changed.
Of course, you never go back. Bitcoin's this one way journey. Once you enter the rabbit hole, there's no turning back. Your world's changed forever.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, go ahead.
And I was going to ask, so how was the transition back in 2019 in Lebanon for you to kind of acquire Bitcoin? Was it a mission, or was it, kind of what were the on-ramp rails? Was there existing stuff, or was it a bit of a complex position you found yourself in?
Well, in my case, it was extremely difficult because I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing left to my name other than $70 in my pocket, which was, the harsh reality that I woke up to, and everybody, well, the whole country basically woke up to that. The bank account was closed. Nobody was answering the phone. No ATM was functioning. So whatever money you had in your pocket, like on your person, then that's it. That's all there was. There was no access to anything. And if you wanted to go get money, that came like much later, and they spoon fed you like breadcrumbs of your account, regardless of how much you had in there. You weren't allowed to withdraw more than like pennies, like I don't know, like a few $100s a month, irrespective of what your savings were. And eventually, that hyper inflated to a big fat zero. So my journey to Bitcoin was initially, it started from a path of desperation. I had to figure something out. It was a very big and painful shock to go through something like this, because you literally don't know what to do. In my head, I was retired essentially. Like everything was put into place. I established my businesses previously, and now it's time to just sit back and relax. And then boom, this nuclear bomb drops, and everything is wiped out, and you literally have to start from zero without any guidance or direction. So you look for anything, for any strings to sort of to grasp on, and nothing was working. Absolutely nothing was working. And when you get to Bitcoin initially, I also doubted it. But you have to remember that my state of mind was not intact. My state of mind was in 911 mode, just trying to find a solution. So obviously, I dabbled into shit coins, thinking that was a solution as well. That blew up on top of it. And if eventually you have to go through that massive nuclear destruction before something like Bitcoin resonates and clicks the way it's supposed to. So I had a choice, either die or find a way to make it work. And the only thing I had to my name was my knowledge. What's up here? No one can take that away. But you have to be in the mental state to think properly, right? And so that took about a year. It was an extremely difficult journey, but slowly but surely, somehow I did it. Don't ask me how exactly I managed to be here today. I couldn't recall, but somehow I found the energy, day by day to pull myself up together and make it here. Freelance. I was freelancing, crumbs initially, just enough to get by from, every 24 hours. And, when you have other people who depend on you, it makes things even worse, especially psychology, because
a lot of pressure
because you can't do anything. That's the worst part. And so it was incredibly rough, it was incredibly rough. And I don't wish this on anyone. But long story short, with thousands of hours of reading and diving and watching videos and asking questions, then my background kicked in, where I tried to debunk Bitcoin, where I tried to blow it up. Is it too good to be true? What is this? It's not possible. The same ideas that millions of others have gone through. But ultimately, when you realize that you're not getting anywhere useful with these thoughts, and you also realize that other people much more involved than you, who started way before you, have also failed, and then you also realize that governments have been attacking it for such a long time and they've failed, well, then you're like, okay, well, there must be something more to this, and that's it. The more you learn, the more you read, the more you ask, the stronger your conviction becomes. And that's when I decided, I was going to turn whatever destruction happened to me into a force for good, for my own survival, like for my own sanity. Like the fact that I can help somebody made me feel better. And obviously, if it helped them collectively, we would empower each other, to go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's really where my journey into Bitcoin came in. And it's been deeper and stronger ever since.
Yeah, no, of course. And I personally, thankfully, I can't relate to that, but I mean, I can definitely understand what you mean when you don't have that clarity of mind. It's very hard to focus on new things and grasp. It's kind of desperation of how do we make, ends meet. But thankfully, in the midst of all of this chaos, the fact that you saw the orange bright light and kind of went that way, has been the best thing that could have happened. And I'm sure at the moment, as we record this episode, there's so many people that in similar situations don't know how to get out of this chaotic world, are kind of being just strangled away by the system. And the fact that there are companies such as yourself, the Bitcoin Way, and other institutions that are helping to kind of stretch out this arm and help people, and not leave them on their own to try and grasp things. How do I get this? How do I move into this new freedom age? It's super important, the work that you're doing. So definitely, to the listeners listening, you're not alone. If you need help with anything, amazing minds like Tony and the rest are here to help and give you that guidance and the right path, because we're all essentially the same humans, but we all have different needs, different capabilities, different circumstances, and it's really important to give that helping hand to people that really need it the most.
Absolutely, man. And there are many people around the globe suffering. And, the main message to take from this is that if you're struggling with money, it's not your fault. It's not you lacking in effort. It's not you lacking in motivation. You are fighting against a system that is 100% rigged against you. Well, you can't swim against a strong tide. You just can't. And so you need to understand that you are in a rigged system before you can take the right measures to help yourself. If you don't believe, you're in such a predicament, you're just going to be running around in circles, complaining all day long, wondering why nothing changes, and mistakenly thinking that you're going to fix this problem simply by voting one person over another. That's not the way it works. The whole system is broken and designed to work against you. So it doesn't matter who's in power, as long as the power of money is not stripped away from them. That's fundamentally the root of this evil, is fiat money. And now we're living towards the end of that Ponzi, right? So this is why the world is falling apart. This is why we have all these wars, all these distractions that are all by design, by the way. None of these things are coincidental. These are things that are put in place to distract from the main issue, is that the money is broken, and it's designed as a surveillance tool. Fiat money really is designed for three things: to steal, censor, and control. There's nothing else to it once you take the time and study it. Because everywhere you look, you can't do anything with your funds. The money in your bank is not yours. Till this day, there are millions of folks that don't understand this, or worse, don't believe it. And to all these people, I'm like, go to the bank and just ask them to take out $5,000 or 5,000 euros, whatever it is, wherever you're living. See what they tell you. You won't get anywhere with that, especially today. And so that calamity is only going to get worse over time. We've already seeing it, just as recently in Japan, the whole country blew up.
Yeah.
So, what happened in Lebanon is not isolated to Lebanon. What happened in Venezuela before that and in other countries before that, it's not isolated to these remote little
Or
countries
Turkey,
or Turkey.
Argentina, so many countries to list it.
Of course. So it's not isolated to all these, it just happens in that part of the world. That's a very dangerous delusion to hide behind. And in fact, this is what works against a lot of people in the West and in Europe, is because they're so far from that type of problem. They think it can't happen to me because
they ignore it.
Yeah, they ignore it because I'm living in wherever I'm living, and no, it'll never come here. You know what? A lot of folks, me included, were also living like kings and queens and thought this would never happen. But then, like a switch, it went from 100 to 0. So if that's you need to completely reshape your thinking. Otherwise, when your turn comes, and I say when your turn comes, not if your turn comes, because the whole system is falling apart. Depending where you are on that ship, it'll just take you a little longer before you go underwater. But you are 100% going underwater. So you need to find a way to protect yourself because no one's coming to save you. And for the first time ever, for the first time in a species, humanity, we have this option. Okay, this is why a lot of people link Bitcoin to religion, like a gift from God and all that. Because if you think about it, I mean, nobody knows who created it, right? There's many theories, many ideas floating, but nobody knows. And that's really the key to why it's such a tool for hope, right? Because it's the only thing we have to exit the system. As long as you're stuck inside this criminal organization, you're going to end up a casualty of it. But to get out of it, you need to learn something new, right? And this is technology. And most people are not comfortable with technology. Like a lot of people, I'm like, I can't use a computer properly. So I don't want to do anything because I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to lose all my money. Fair point. Very valid point. So this is where, we come in. So we take all of this, alien technology, so to speak, and we translate it into basic English that like a 10-year-old can understand. And we handhold everyone through the entire process from zero to the end game to make sure that your entire setup is bulletproof and that more importantly, how to use it. We train you how to use it as if you've been doing it your whole life. And once you get to that point, the feeling of empowerment that everybody goes through is undescribable until you're in that position. You become unconfiscatable, like untouchable. And in the eyes that those that hate you, you become very dangerous because now they can't control you anymore. See, if you don't have control of your money, you're nothing. If I can shut down your bank account on a whim because I don't like the way you look or I don't like what you said, then I own you, right? So unless I change my mind, you're finished. And that is the situation, the predicament of every human being that still saves in fiat money and puts their savings in a bank account. The fact that the bank hasn't attacked you yet means nothing. They will, because they are all bankrupt. And so when their turn comes to go boom, who's the first person who's going to pay for it? It's all the savings, the bail-ins. That's the automatic reaction of every single bank out there. So this is why
100%.
We push this message heavily, try to bring out this awareness, try to convince as many folks as possible into paying serious attention to this because it's not going away. It's only going to get worse and it's only going to accelerate as each day passes.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you on that basis, Tony. So I'm not sure but I was born and raised in a small island called Cyprus, and we went through a very nice case study in 2013 when the European Central Bank Commission decided to do a nice haircut and just steal everybody's money overnight, and nobody had any say. And this has been now over a decade. It's been 11 years going into 12 years. And people still dismiss that idea. They think, once again, as you said, Tony, oh, that's in another country, that will never happen to me. And there's been so many of these cases where ordinary citizens' funds are just seized overnight, and people still choose to close their eyes and say, everything's perfectly fine. I put my money in my savings account. I get my 2-3% yield annually, and everything's fine. But until it hits you, as that saying goes, it's better to have an umbrella on you before it rains, not you walk out, it rains, and you look for an umbrella. And I think that's a perfect kind of synergy to when it comes to Bitcoin. Even if you believe that nothing will happen to you, to your bank account, it's still a smart idea to start stacking sats in case it does, because you never know. And as we know in the history of fiat, all fiat fails at some point. May it be 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. It will fail. And the current economic fiat system is all heavily pegged to the USD, arguably the biggest Ponzi in the world. And once that blows up, and it will blow up, and it's going to be nasty, all other fiat currencies will domino effect collapse as well. And then it's too late to be figuring out, what do I do now? Oh, where's my money? How do I pay for bread and milk? By having Bitcoin, which, as you mentioned, Tony, and I love that term, which was kind of famously driven by Tony Vay's unconfiscatable. Bitcoin is the world's first asset ever to exist that's unconfiscatable. Gold, as we know, when the gold prohibition was confiscated from citizens. Real estate, if you live in the wrong country and suddenly there's a dictatorship and they want to take your house, flat, apartment, villa, whatever it is, it's gone. There's no saying it. But with Bitcoin, and as Knut says, if you memorize the 12 words in your brain even, which is not something we would recommend, but theoretically, nobody can ever access it. It's just you that has access to it. And I think just that in itself, that it's unconfiscatable, is so powerful. And it boggles me that people still today, 15 years later, are looking at Bitcoin as, as some magic internet money, as some scam. It's here today, gone tomorrow, where the actual scam is the money in their bank account, which they so religiously believe, it will always be there, It's fascinating.
Of course, it's a psyop since the day you were born. 99% of people don't understand what money is. They don't understand what it is, because if they did, they'd be like a revolution long time ago. But nobody has a clue, and for some unexplainable reason, so many believe that the only money that's valid must be issued by a government. Why? Where is that written? Who dictated that? This was the bullshit that you were fed.
Education, I guess.
Yeah. This was the bullshit that you were fed since, the day you went to school, because guess who owns the educational system? Guess who passes their narratives of the on the schools? It's the same people controlling the whole narrative,
the money
around the whole scam, right? But that's why, they say go down the rabbit hole, because the more you go, you understand that everything about your life, is bullshit. It's a lie. And it's very hard, to accept that, because on the surface, you absolutely sound crazy, right? But the more you read and the more you put, the pieces together, then you very quickly realize that, holy shit, I'm not crazy, but nobody else seems to be paying attention for whatever reason, until they either die or they blow up. And they're like, they have no choice at that point but to pay attention. But to go back to your point about this whole thing in Cyprus, when they stole everybody's money, because that's exactly what they did. They stole their money. What happened the next day? Absolutely nothing.
In Cyprus?
Yeah.
Nothing, correct. Everybody was silent. There was no revolt, no nothing. Everybody was in utter shock that it happened. And nothing happened.
And nothing happened. So somebody came, wiped out your life savings, and you went about the next day with your head down between your hands, all depressed and crying, and life as usual. Whoop-de-doo, too bad. See, that tells me more about the dire state of the world than anything. Most people are zombies, fucking brainless human beings just walking around like hamsters, programmed to function, in a certain way. And that's all they're doing. There's a lack of ability to do critical thinking. Because
Yeah.
if somebody came up to your house and beat you up, what would your instinct be? Is to try to fight, right? So
Correct.
when somebody rips off your life savings, they're attacking you, not physically, economically, financially, but it is an attack. So what's your reaction? By doing nothing, you're essentially inviting them to do it again, right? So if you go on, you're back to being that dummy on the hamster, trying to bring back the savings that they stole from you. And now we come back to this day and age, 2024. Now they're stealing it again. One, they're hyperinflating it. The inflation is double digits and higher depending where you're living. So one, you're being ripped off from there. Two, they're taxing you at the highest possible levels now, right? So there's the inflation, there's the taxation, and on top of it, a lot of the banks won't even give you your money. So what are you left with at the end of the day, right? Like if you're making, let's to make the numbers easy, $1,000 a month, right? It's hyperinflated 15, 20%. Boom, that's gone. Then you're taxed up to, let's say 40, 50%.
50%.
Boom, that's gone. And then you have to argue with the bank, pay their bullshit fees for whatever thing you want to do. So what's left from that 1,000? 200?
500 if you're lucky, but more realistically 200. Yeah.
Maybe. So by that metric, that means you're working 75% of the year for free.
Yeah.
Crazy. Slavery was supposed to be abolished, right? We're supposed to be done with that. Well, guess what?
Supposed to.
This is modern slavery. Nobody's in chains, but everybody's in debt. Okay? So as long as you're in that system, I like to quote this. People don't like it, but for me, it makes perfect sense. Everybody's a village donkey because your money is dictated by someone else. You have no say. And if you don't work, if you're not that good little donkey that goes from point A to point B, you don't get paid because it's controlled by someone else that can decide on a whim, no more money for you. So the people have also a responsibility to start thinking, properly and understand that there is an option now. There's no reason to be fearful. There's no reason to hate your neighbor. There's no reason for division to occur. All of these problems are made to keep you distracted from the main source of the problem, are these assholes at the top who think they have the right to play God and who control the money printers. Right, like that example with the red ants and the black ants. If you put 100 ants, black ants in a jar, and you also put 100 red ants in the same jar, and you just leave them, nothing happens. But then you shake that jar, and they destroy each other.
Yeah.
So look at the world today. What's happening? There's a calamity no matter where you look. People killing each other, people hating each other. No, it's your fault. No, it's his fault. Who is shaking that jar? But nobody's paying attention because, again, the lack of critical thinking, right, because of that psyop that turns you into this brainless zombie, is what's causing you to destroy each other. So it takes an effort, and more people are doing it, thankfully, but there's still too many that aren't doing it. I mean, if you look at the UK, for example, that is a completely failed country, like fucking beyond completely failed. They are destroying each other, and then the laws, so to speak, are against the people. Again, by design. And the people, think they have to replace one idiot by another in order to fix the problem, and they fight against each other and they argue against each other, not looking upwards to see who is stirring the pot.
Is struggling.
So if everybody took 5 minutes to look up and then redirected all that hate and energy to the real cause, the problem would be solved in 24 hours. Right? But it takes, some common sense. It takes a willingness to accept that, you've been duped your whole life and wanting to do your part to fix it. And numbers-wise, there's 8 billion people. The numbers are not on their side, but somehow they've managed to paralyze all these folks with constant psyops and brainwashing and narratives and media and all that nonsense. People don't think anymore. They just act. And they all want to belong, right? So if you think something is wrong, and you in your heart you want to act, but then you're like, what are they going to think of me? And so you don't do anything. You stay the same dummy that you were 5 minutes ago, because you're worried that your next door neighbor might think you're crazy. That's how they keep you running in circles, essentially in the same mess that you are forever. But again, like I said, there are a lot more people now that are sort of snapping out of that coma, waking up and pushing back. So historically, there's only two ways to fight evil. Well, actually, there's only one way. It's to go to war, violence, right? There's no other way. No, like nobody destroyed tyranny and protected their freedom over a cup of coffee or dinner. It just never happened. They got on a battlefield. Whoever was left standing won. That's it. Well, today you have an option. Today, for the first time ever, we have an option, and that's to defund the system that's causing all this. But you have to opt out of
the peaceful revolt.
The peaceful revolution.
Correct.
Bitcoin, there's no human being on the planet that can dictate anything about it. You can't print it, you can't manipulate it, you can't regulate it, you can't tax it, you can't sanction it, you can't do anything with it other than use it. It's peer-to-peer community, it's peer-to-peer transactions. If I want to send you $100, I can do it. I don't need anybody's permission, not the government's, no one's permission. And no one can stop it because it's direct, right? And so, but you have to learn how to use it. It's like in the same way everybody's driving now, but nobody was born a driver, right? You have to learn it.
True.
So it's not nuclear science. It's just new.
Yeah. No, you brought up some really good points, and I want to comment on two aspects. So the first one is definitely critical thinking. I fully agree with you, Tony. Most people today don't plug in their brain. They just go blindly by their day doing the same old tasks, not thinking about anything, not questioning anything. And I think the main factor to blame for that is the educational system that we have all over the world, which is by design made to dumb you down and not ask questions. But instead of learning, you're memorizing things. And in most cases, memorizing things that are false, and in most cases won't be useful at all for you in life. But you needed to get that approval, that certificate, that A or 5 points to pass by and, be an educated person. But in most cases, that system just dumbs you down and builds you towards being the slave for the system, where you're not questioning anything and just doing things blindly. Now, the second point is, which you mentioned earlier on, was that you kind of mentioned that people are scared of technology. I would shape it another way. I wouldn't say people are necessarily afraid of technology. They're afraid of change. And this goes hand in hand with the critical thinking and the programming of people. By nature, as human creatures, we're kind of these, what I refer to, comfort creatures. Once we find something that works for us, we sit back and we don't change. And I think to a certain extent, that's the big catalyst that is stopping people from learning about Bitcoin, becoming self-sovereign individuals, and really taking control of their lives into their own hands. Now, in some cases, like you've lived, Tony, and other people are living through at this moment, where there is no other chance but to find an escape route. And then, you start that journey. Like I would like to see people in what we call developed countries, right, in the West, to start this self-exploring journey. But how we get there, I think there's a lot of education and a lot of kind of signaling to be done by us in the Bitcoin community to kind of get this chromosome in their head to go, actually, let me go into this. Let me explore this further. What's your take on that, Tony?
Oh, you're absolutely right. The fear of change, getting out of your comfort zone, that must, you have to stop that. That's you're headed off a cliff if you continue down that path. Education is a big part of it, and it's working to a large degree. But I've come to the realization that most folks won't be educated that way until they get destroyed. I'm 100% convinced that the only real way most folks are going to learn is when they have no option other than that. Because if you're living again somewhere where the sun is still shining and you're still more or less being able to buy what you want, yeah, it sucks, it costs more, but you're still relatively okay. It's not big enough of an incentive to make you do a 180. But at some point, that $1,000 of yours is going to buy you a Kit Kat, maybe. And that's when you're going to start looking for real answers. And if you think you're going to find these answers, from within the same system that put you in that place in the first place, you're in for a rude awakening. So it's going to take an effort. How long that takes, how painful that becomes, that's to be seen. But unfortunately, human nature is what it is. It's hard, man. It's almost like someone who has a drug addiction, and they know they need to get off the drugs, but each time they try, they fail. Unless you really have a force that rips them out of this world, forces them to change, and then they clean up and move forward in the right way.
For sure. And willpower, which is one of the hardest things to have, to tell yourself, I will stop abiding by these things and take control of my life. As you said, with the drug example, it's just easier to take that next hit and just carry on with the system than to unplug and make that change, which is super hard in the beginning, but in the long run, it's probably the best thing you can do for yourself and your family and your future children.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's also important to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, to
100%.
To improve, you want to hang out with someone who's you consider better than you, or who has accomplished a bit more than you. You don't hang out with people that have done nothing, right? So that's not the way to move forward.
Like that saying goes, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. I don't know who said that, but I love that quote.
Room. Absolutely in the wrong room. So people that are Bitcoiners, there's sort of like a magical attraction between them, even though they've never met before. You put two Bitcoiners in a room, within seconds.
No introduction needed.
No introduction needed. And, the conversation just flows as if, you've known each other your whole life, because, of, that same mindset, the same values, the same, there's a lot of commonality. And the underlying theme is wanting to become unconfiscatable, no longer accepting that my life is going to be dictated by someone that hates me. Okay. So that's really, what it comes down to. And once that clicks, there's no going back. Like people who are living on a Bitcoin standard today, I've yet to meet an unhappy one. Yes, the Bitcoin volatility is up and down, but who cares? Because, when you zoom out, everything is on the uptrend, and no one that's really understanding Bitcoin sees Bitcoin as an investment, like a stock. That's the wrong approach. People that are only looking at that worthless fiat number is because they don't understand what it is that they're dealing with, and they're treating it just like any other legacy asset. And that's why 99% of them end up losing their shirt for whatever reason. Bitcoin cannot be measured in fiat. Yet it's the one thing that attracts most newbies into it. So they look at the number, oh my God, look, it's worth 70,000, 80,000. It's going to go to $1 million. I'm going to become rich. Well, if you think you're going to become rich in those millions of dollars, you're an idiot. Because when Bitcoin is worth $1 million, the dollar itself is worth less than toilet paper. So you don't want to be hoarding, all that worthless money, because, by then everybody will become a billionaire and trillionaire, like in the same way they are in Zimbabwe. But what can you buy with $10 billion of Zimbabwe money? You can't buy half a Kit Kat with it. It's meaningless money.
Correct.
The understanding of money is Bitcoin is a scarce asset. It's an appreciating asset. Its value goes up, not down, because nobody can print it. Fiat anything attached to the fiat legacy system is a losing investment, and will all go down against Bitcoin at some point. It's already accelerating now, but at some point that acceleration is going to turn on go on hyperbolic, and it's going to go from 0 to 10,000 instantly, like this. And that's where most people are going to be caught off guard, wondering, ooh, what the hell happened? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? The signal is.
How are these guys so lucky, right?
Yeah, how are they
spending
so
10,000 hours studying?
Exactly. How are these guys so lucky? So again, The governments try to destroy it, but now, as you can see, a lot more politicians are embracing it, not because they necessarily want to.
Crazy. Every political candidate is talking about it, about their
Exactly.
Bitcoin strategy.
Because they know it's not going anywhere, and they know they can't do anything to stop it. So they either embrace it,
Yeah.
or they get rendered to irrelevancy, right? But the battle is still not won, right? I mean, Bitcoin is definitely winning, but the battle is still not won, because whoever embraces it, like, Bitcoin doesn't care about any politician. In fact, it was created to completely remove that garbage, and because it's a set of rules without rulers. That's what Bitcoin is about. So all these politicians that are embracing it, at some point, are going to have to accept that they will be stripped from the power of money, because that's really what it comes down to. And when that happens, only when that happens, can the world move in the right direction, because then they will be held accountable to their actions. You do a poor job, they kick you out instantly. Right now, you're stuck with them for whatever number of years, and they can, they have free reign over whatever bullshit they want to do, changing laws and rules and regulations and mandates, just because they feel like it, and no accountability. And this is why we're in the mess that we're in. And they're able to do this because they stretch out, they hit the on switch on the money printer, and they fund all these crimes. Whereas you, the regular Joe, has to go from 9 to 5, running on that wheel, and giving 80% of it away, and then wondering why you can't buy anything at the end of the day. So when you're tired of being abused, you need to do something. And now there is an option. So the fact that you don't do it, well, that's on you, right? You can't blame anybody else other than the person staring back at you in that mirror.
Yeah, no. Well, this current kind of agenda with politicians embracing Bitcoin, and Trump just a few weeks ago at the national conference saying how when he becomes president, he will put those 210,000 Bitcoin into the strategic reserve of the country. To me, that's kind of like a double-edged sword, because as you said, Tony, Bitcoin was designed to separate the state from the money, and now the state adopting it and saying, oh yeah, we'll use it for good things. I sit on the other side of the table where I'm like, I don't like governments holding hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins, because that Bitcoin should be trickling down to the average Joes and giving, that freedom to the people, instead of just sitting in some cold storage in some vault somewhere in Washington and not doing nothing to it. So, but then on the other hand, it legitimizes the asset class, right? Because then if the government is holding it alongside its bonds, alongside its gold reserves, then it gives it this global acceptance where it's not anymore a speculative asset. It's a true, global reserve asset. So what's your take on it, Tony? Are you in favor of governments holding hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins on their reserves and balance sheets, or no?
It's a double-edged sword. For those that don't understand money, they absolutely love it, because for them, it means that the number is going to go up to some astronomical level. So they get all horny about that. It's going to become worth, $10 million. But the idea here, but the idea here is not to extend the longevity of the dollar or whatever other fiat money is. The idea here is to replace it completely. I don't want to deal with dollars. I don't want to deal with euros.
No.
I want to deal in satoshis, because that's the only money that has value. So extending the lifeline of the dollar or the euro or whatever other rubbish currencies out there defeats the whole purpose. But when the masses don't understand money and refuse to take the time to do so, well, then you can easily fool them by these bells and whistles. Bring the number up to 10 million. You get 5 billion dummies clapping for it, right? Which is defeating the whole purpose. I think in a long enough time span, that fails. Even that fails, because just it's just going to fall apart at some point. Maybe you can stretch it out a bit longer, but at some point it will fail. And this is really where I want to see it happen now. I don't know how long that takes. Nobody has a crystal ball, but it's going to take a while, or maybe not. If there's a sudden awakening in the world, maybe that's like some wishful thinking on my part. But we don't need 8 billion people to understand what I'm trying to say. We only need 10%, and the whole system
Yeah.
falls apart. And then the whole system falls apart, and the rest will just like copy paste like sheep anyhow. So you lead by example, because your life is horrible, and then you're looking on the other side of the fence and you see a whole bunch of people living. Wow, how are they living so well? And okay, I want to be like them now. So tell me what I have to do, right? Most people have to be told.
And I think to a certain extent, social media is already doing that. As much as it's kind of dumbing us down, there is already so much chaos and so much stupidity happening around the world where people are reposting it, and Gen Zs are waking up to, holy shit, like what's going on in this world? Like, I don't want to be a part of this. And I think this is just going to triple on, and more people will start questioning the system.
Well, you see, there's an uptrend in unschooling around the world. I don't know if you've paid attention to this, but a lot of people are no longer sending their kids to school because they've realized that your educational system is poisonous. They train you to become compliant, brainless human beings. And so there's a lot more folks not going that way. They're adopting, their own ways, teaching their own values, their own skills, and the kids are growing up much healthier, right? So that whole lifestyle is starting to change. Like Bitcoin opens up such a can of questions and leads you in so many different directions outside the money. It brings us back to the era, like long time ago, when they used to build all these magnificent, works of art, this architectural wonders that you see across Europe and other parts of the world. Like, who were these people to build, these magnificent things? We don't have any of that now. You build a brand new house now.
Glass and cement.
You buy a brand new house. So you pray to God in 2 years it doesn't fall on your head. The fiat system is not a positively incentivizing one, right? It only helps those at the top, at the money printer. And now they're even laughing at the world publicly because they realize that the Ponzi's up, and so you might as well milk it for what it's worth. There was, I don't know which central banker from New Zealand. There was
New Zealand, yeah.
It was New Zealand. It went viral. It was his own words. It's like it's the best job in the world is central bank.
The best business to be in. Yeah.
Best business to be in, because we print this rubbish and all these idiots believe it has value, right? So
crazy.
What more do you want to hear to not want to change your life? So again, it takes some effort. The fear of change is real, as you mentioned. Nobody wants to come out of their comfort zone. But in the famous words of Max Kaiser, if you want to go down with the ship, fuck you. Go down with it.
Yeah, no, true. And I guess the other going aspect of change, it's the only constant, right? Like the world is changing all the time, every single millisecond, if you like it or not. So it's down to you if you want to be a part of that change and adapt yourself, or just sit in the same old, hamster wheel and keep on pushing. But yeah, I like the point that you brought up, Tony, about homeschooling. This is something that me and my wife are also talking a lot of, since we have two young daughters who are currently in nursery, but are going to be going down the educational route in the coming years. And even prior to them being born, we were always kind of considering, maybe homeschooling would be a better option. And, it gives us the freedom to travel wherever we want. We don't need to get the special permission. Oh, can we take our, kids out of school to go travel? But then in BTC Prague, actually, I spent some time with Daniel Prince, and I just finished reading his book, the Choose Life, where he talks extensively about homeschooling and world schooling. And I think I'm done set that there won't be no normal education for my kids, and hopefully other people will take this on and implement it themselves, because the stuff that you're being educated, it's literally numbing your brain and dumbing you down, and in most cases you're learning things that are totally outdated. The world technologically today is advancing at such nano speeds that by the time you finish your your junior and high school, all this BS will be relevant to you. So even to a certain extent, universities, which were, even when I was growing up, it was praised, you need to go to an elite university to get a good job. But that's out the window. Forget this, getting a good university degree and a good job. In most cases, those jobs are not even existent. And I know for myself, I got a degree in business studies, but that's basically as general of a degree as you can get. But after getting it, gave me nothing. Like, I couldn't get no job. I had to go back to ground zero, find something, get an apprenticeship, start my way up. So even to universities, I wouldn't advise anyone, especially with the astronomical prices the university is charging now, 30, 40, $50,000 or euros per year for what? For your kids to go out drinking every night and get barely any education. It's more about getting practice and doing something that you love. And I think this, leading back to Bitcoin gives us this opportunity and kind of lifeline to really focus on something that you love, and in return for that service or product, just charge in sats and get remunerated in your own hardest money. And in the long term, you're going to be so much well off than trying to get this career and going on this corporate ladder of getting that promotion, becoming the director, the partner of a firm, because that's all BS. Because you're always working for someone, and you never know when the axe comes down and they say, "Oh, sorry, mate, time's up. We don't need you anymore." And you've essentially lost all those years of hard work, effort, blood, sweat, and tears for nothing. So, offering your service, even if it's something extremely small today, getting those sats and keeping them safe in your cold storage in the future, you're going to be so much well off than trying to kind of, make your way up in this rat race of hierarchical status in traditional markets.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, the days of casually buying Bitcoin like most people are doing, those are going to end very quickly. And I suspect, in my opinion, I think this year, 2024, will be the last year that most people will be able to go in
really?
and just casually buy it. Well, I mean, look who's in the space now. You've got all the big players, the ones with the billions, hundreds of billions dollar budgets.
The Wall Street boys are here.
Yes, and unfortunately, they've taken the time to study Bitcoin, so they know that this is a different monster. This is a different game here, and if they're not in it, right, they're going to be completely eliminated. So them being in it is nothing to be afraid of. They can't do anything. Like that the previous games of corruptions and manipulation that they're famously known for in Wall Street, those cannot happen.
Yeah.
Their involvement in the space is preservation of wealth, in my opinion, because if they don't preserve their wealth, it's going to evaporate just like everybody else's. And so they understand this now. Now they're selling it to their clients, via ETFs, which is smoke and mirrors when it comes to Bitcoin. That's not Bitcoin. It's fiat based.
A golden wrapped CFD.
Yeah, this is like it's like a mirage. It's like instead of going on a cruise, you're wearing virtual glasses that show you're on a cruise, but you're still living in your in your basement downstairs. So that's what an ETF is. So stay away from it. Buy the real deal. If you have a business, start accepting Bitcoin. Forget your local currency, or at least start by accepting half and save the sats and spend that worthless rubbish, the fiat currency. Get rid of it and instead of and hoard your sats, because at some point those are going to be worth nothing, and you'll be extremely thankful that you actually have an asset that is going to significantly upgrade your quality of life. So I push people to do this. I strongly recommend people do this. And if you have a job, insist that they pay you in sats. I don't want to get paid in fiat anymore. It's going to be hard to do depending where you are, but enough people make noise, and it's social pressure. Bitcoin is a bottoms up technology. It's not a top down. The top will have to comply to the bottom because of that pressure, because now it's in the interest of the world to own an asset that nobody can corrupt. And we are significantly early, dinosaur early. For anyone that thinks you're late to Bitcoin because it's worth 57,000 or 60,000, that's not true. First of all, nobody needs to buy one Bitcoin, right off the gate. If you can do it, obviously, try to get as close as possible to one Bitcoin, but you don't necessarily have to jump in with one, from the start. Just work your way up to as much as possible.
Even just a casual DCA on a monthly basis is still better than holding zero. And in the future, if you hold it, I mean, you're going to be much more well off. Don't look at the price tomorrow or next month. Have a low time preference. Look in the years ahead, and it's going to pay off much more significantly. Just one more point about ETFs, which I've been talking about quite a bit recently with our latest guests, and I want to hear your take on it, Tony. You know, these Wall Street boys, as I said, come into the game, which once again is a double-edged sword, but they've been crooks for centuries, and they've been manipulating and selling fake Ponzi services to their clients since Wall Street came about. And now with ETFs, I strongly believe that many of the ETF providers are just selling paper Bitcoin. They've got no Bitcoin in the reserves. It's all just, you know, selling the Bitcoin dream, but there is no Bitcoin. And sooner or later, that, as my dad likes to call it, shit eventually floats to the surface. And once, you know, these ETFs get exposed that there is no, you know, Bitcoin in it, it's going to be another big chaos and another big black swan event. What is your take, Tony? Do you truly believe that all these ETF providers, that 10 or 15, how many of them, they really have those Bitcoin reserves, or is just paper Bitcoin being sold and business as usual on Wall Street?
It's very hard to know, honestly. But if you want to like base your opinions on,
but your gut feeling,
my gut feeling,
I don't
No, I don't believe any of them. Obviously, I don't trust any of them. But the good side is that I don't have to. But you know, people keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. You know, like the how many financial collapses have we had over time? We had the banks. We had the collapse in 2008. Recently, we had FTX. We had Mt. Gox. We had, like, how many have we had so far? Numerous. And yet people keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. They put their money in the bank. They leave their coins on an exchange. They keep doing the same moronic moves that, you know, have blown up numerous times in the past. So they just don't learn, right? So at some point, there'll be nothing left for people to make a mistake with, right? And that's when I think mindset starts to change. So the ETFs, in my opinions, they're smoke and mirrors. It's not Bitcoin. If you want real Bitcoin, you don't put it in ETF, because any profits you make are in fiat money. You're taxed on it. You've done nothing intelligent. On top of it, they are honeypots. Okay, so if one day a corrupt government decides, put the hand on it, it's the easiest thing. It takes 5 minutes, it's shut down, your money's disappeared, poof, gone. If they get hacked, your name is on a database. You know, this person has an allocation of whatever, X amount. We know where he is. We know what his address is. Go find him. Again, all of these mechanisms of the legacy system are not designed for anybody's well-being or protection. These are all marketing lies that are spewed out. All of this KYC, all of this surveillance, all of this ID, all of that bullshit is for one purpose only: surveillance and control. That's it. And now if you pay attention, look how many companies have had their data breaches. In fact, in this last year, 2024, data breaches are up 1,000%. Okay.
Wow.
That's a massive number. 1,000%. And that's for things that are unrelated to money. So imagine what's going to happen once the world realizes how valuable Bitcoin really is, and it goes up to astronomical values. And those who don't have it, what do you think they're going to want? They're going to want to get it, right? So,
of course,
cyber attacks, phishing scams, all of that stuff, expect it. It's coming. It would be unnatural for it not to come, because, you know, those that don't have, they want. And nobody wants to work for things. Everyone wants a shortcut, so they want to steal it. Or trick suckers into giving it to them. Education is going to be a must. There's no choice going forward. If you want to survive, you're going to have to level up your skills for many reasons. One, financially. Two, the even bigger threat is AI, right? AI is going to 100% wipe out all the low-hanging fruit jobs. You know, the flipping burgers, the cleaning streets, all these manual low-level jobs. Not that they're bad, but they're low-level jobs are going to be replaced because, you know, it costs less. It's all about money at the end of the day. And so what's going to happen to all these people? well, they have two choices. Either they level up their skills into something significantly better, or they remain government slaves in a central bank digital currency or a UBI, universal basic income, which is tied to a digital ID, which they're starting to prototype in different parts of Europe and
To
all that
roll out,
stuff. Yeah, to see how many idiots are actually going to run towards it, thinking it's a good thing, and then they're going to decide. And if you're stuck in the system, you have no life. Your life is dictated by those making the decisions. If you're okay with that, that's your prerogative. Good luck. Have a nice life. I suspect most intelligent people, those with a bit of common sense, will not choose that lifestyle, and we're going to want to opt out. But in order to opt out, again, it comes down to being outside the system. And to be outside the system, you need to own your money. And the only money you can do that with is Bitcoin in self-custody. You don't put it with an institution. You don't leave it on an exchange. You don't involve, third-party companies with KYC and all that stuff, so that you think you're safe because you believe you're too stupid to do it yourself. That's not true. Don't believe all these lies. Don't believe all these myths that are being spewed out there. Everybody can learn this. It's not that hard, and people like us, we consult with folks on a daily basis. We take you again from point zero to point Superman in a very short period of time, and you'll be doing this like a hero, like you've been doing it your whole life. And once you get to that stage, you are untouchable.
Which I think everybody wants to be, even if they don't want to prove to themselves. Kind of, that's the end goal for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to bring up one more point to conclude this episode, which you mentioned censorship, and I think that's something super important when it comes to regards to privacy in Bitcoin. As you mentioned, Tony, the government realizes there's no way of shutting this protocol, this revolution down. So they're trying to, interfere their only ways that they can. And privacy is one thing. Well, to most people thinking that Bitcoin is private, it's definitely not private. So definitely whoever the claims that terrorist financing and illicit financing is happening through Bitcoin absolutely doesn't understand its technology, because it's an open ledger that anybody can check, and with some homework you can connect the dots together. And the US government recently, in the last few months, as we saw with the case with Samurai Wallet and shutting down a Whirlpool, and the Samurai guys are still going through trial now. Hopefully it will end well and they'll be freed, but we never know what's going to happen. But just in general, this shutdown on privacy that the US government and I'm sure other governments are really pushing forward to. How do you, Tony, see the future of privacy in the world of Bitcoin evolving from this point onwards?
Well, it's going to go through hell before it prevails. Ultimately, all these attacks on privacy are because it's winning, right? I mean, the weak and corrupt, they attack these things because it threatens them directly. And so, unfortunately, we've been quiet about these things, slowly giving up our freedoms and privacy over many decades because, we've been spoon-fed the lies, and we've been dumb enough to believe it for such a long time that it's the systems that are currently in place are very hard to remove, right? Because, they've been around for so long.
And they seem normal. It's just life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes them dangerous, is that a lot of people assume that it's normal and that that's how it should be. So breaking that mindset, that psyop, is going to take a while, but it is happening. It is categorically happening, and it's happening at an accelerating pace, because otherwise, Bitcoin wouldn't be as powerful as it is now and growing as big as it is now, and having all this adoption come into it as quickly as we're seeing every single day now. It's because it's winning. But Bitcoin is not private, it's at least not yet, but there are a lot of privacy tools being built around that ecosystem that at some point will make it private, because it's nobody's business what anyone does with their money, as long as you're following legitimate laws, not bullshit laws that favor 1% and and are completely different for the rest of the people. Not these laws. These laws must be completely ignored and thrown out, because they're corrupt laws. So Bitcoin restores true law and order to the world, because again, no human being can corrupt it. So at some point, the privacy is going to become default on it, and I see it coming, in many different technologies. They're not mature yet, but because the Bitcoin ecosystem is, think about it like the internet in the 1990s. Everything was around one browser and one email application.
Yeah.
And now fast forward to 2024, the whole planet is powered online. So take that and multiply it by 10,000. That's how big an ecosystem on Bitcoin will be. Because again, scarce asset, finite in supply, incorruptible. The possibilities in such a world are just mind-blowing. So I'm very bullish, I'm very optimistic, and I hope we all live long enough to see it, because it's going to really be the ninth wonder of the world. And in 100 years, lucky for them, those born down the line will not even know what a bank is, right? And if they take the time to study some history and they read about us, in this era, they're going to laugh.
Or listen to some podcasts.
Yeah, or listen to some podcasts.
How it was back in the day.
They're going to laugh. I mean, I am 100% convinced, and I say this to everyone, they're going to call us the dumbest people that ever lived, to think that worthless toilet paper printed by a bunch of thieves had value, and you were killing yourself to go work for it. So what do you want me to tell you, man? It's we are living through historic times, and
biblical times, I would even say.
Yeah, you can even go as far as saying that. Sure.
No, amazing, Tony. I guess I wanted to round it up as I do with all guests. What would you want to leave any last thoughts for our listeners? But you kind of summed it up perfectly with what you just said. I guess any other additional tips you would give to our listeners apart from staying humble and stacking sats?
If you have kids, it is your responsibility as a parent to take the time and study this and study Bitcoin to see how it's going to improve your life. It will 100%, no exceptions about it, improve your life in a million ways you're not even considering it right now. But again, because it's new, it may seem daunting, but you can do it. No one is too stupid to learn Bitcoin. No one. And if you need help, reach out. You can find me at thebitcoinway.com. We do this every single day from morning to night. And if you're the type that prefers, going at your own pace, there's plenty of resources online for free that you can, dive into, read about, watch, but take the measures to get out of your comfort zone and do this. Because if you don't, your kids are going to absolutely hate you when they realize that you've destroyed their future, knowing that you had the chance not to.
I think those are some really good advice and powerful things for the longevity of your family well-being and the future generations, which most people unfortunately are not thinking about, especially Gen Zs. It's all about selfish, like myself, what can I get today, but not thinking what can I provide to my future generations down the line. And I think you brought up some very important points there, Tony. So if your listeners can take away the thing, really study Bitcoin, even if not just for yourself, but for your future kids and grandchildren, to make and line them up for the best and freest future that they possibly can have. Tony, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Where can we send our listeners to follow you and get in touch? I guess the bitcoinway.com and X, or
yes,
what would be the best places?
Very active on X. My handle on X is V4BTC. V for victory for Bitcoin. So that's where my handle is. Obviously
nice.
at the bitcoinway.com, and also the bitcoinway _ the Twitter handle for the company itself. We're very active there. And we offer, free 30-minute initial consultation for everybody, like no obligations. You want to call, just say
Amazing.
hi, whatever it is, reach out anytime, anywhere. We're always happy to meet new folks, grow our social circle, with like-minded individuals. And if you have any questions, again, one of the main philosophies we have here is that there are no stupid questions. You ask whatever that's on your mind.
100%.
It's a safe space. No one's going to make fun of you. Everything is valid.
No judgment.
No, absolutely none, zero. The point here is to make sure everybody gets to a point of self-confidence, where they can act on their own and pass that education themselves to everybody that they love going forward.
Amazing. Well, Tony, I would like to thank you once again for your time, for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure once again speaking to you. I look forward to seeing you again in the near future, somewhere around this small world we call Earth. And of course, I wish you and your team an amazing endeavors ahead. Congratulations of everything you've achieved so far. And I'm sure there are very bright days ahead. And we'd love to have you back on the show in the future as our Bitcoin stories evolve and new paradigms shift. So you're always welcome, Tony, on the show whenever you'd like to come back on.
Thank you so much, Gigi. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story and my thoughts with your audience.
My pleasure. Thank you again. And we'll speak soon, Tony.
Absolutely, man.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, I would highly appreciate it if you could boost, rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. It would greatly help us spread these incredible stories and the message of Bitcoin freedom. Also, feel free to reach out to me and follow our social media accounts on X, Nostr, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I appreciate all of your support and make sure to tune in next Thursday for the next episode. Thanks for listening, and remember to stack sats and stay humble.